A young black girl, Mariah, participates in a school track and field competition where she excels but is unjustly overlooked when medals are awarded. Humiliated and heartbroken, she returns home without the recognition she deserves. However, the next day, a mysterious package arrives at her house. Inside, Mariah finds not just the medal she was denied, but also a heartfelt letter from a prominent athlete who witnessed the injustice and was moved by her perseverance and talent. The package also contains an invitation to train with a renowned coach, changing Mariah's life forever. Mariah Anderson stood at the starting line, her heart pounding with excitement and nerves. The young black girl, just 14 years old, had trained relentlessly for this moment. The school's annual track and field competition was the highlight of the year, and Mariah had poured everything she had into preparing for the 400-meter dash. As she looked around at her competitors, she felt a surge of confidence. This was her race, her chance to shine. The whistle blew, and Mariah took off like a bolt of lightning. Her legs moved with precision, her arms pumping in perfect rhythm. She could hear the cheers from the crowd, but she blocked out all distractions, focusing solely on the finish line. As she rounded the final curve, Mariah realized she was ahead of the pack. Her heart soared with the realization that she was going to win. And she did. Mariah crossed the finish line with a burst of speed, leaving her competitors several paces behind. She slowed to a stop, panting but exhilarated. This was the moment she had dreamed of, her victory, her hard work paying off in the most glorious way. The crowd erupted into applause and Mariah beamed with pride. But as the winners were called to the podium to receive their medals, Mariah's heart sank. Her name wasn't called. She watched in stunned silence as another girl, who had finished behind her, stepped onto the top tier and received the gold medal. Mariah looked around in confusion, her eyes searching for a teacher or official who would correct the mistake. But no one did. Mariah stood frozen in place, her heart pounding for a different reason now. The joy and pride she had felt moments ago were replaced by a sharp sting of injustice. She had won the race fair and square, but somehow her victory was being taken away from her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she watched the other girl bask in the glory that should have been hers. She glanced over at her parents in the stands, who were just as confused and hurt as she was. Her father's face was tight with anger, and her mother's eyes were filled with sorrow. Mariah wanted to run to them, to bury her face in their arms and let the tears flow, but she couldn't move. She felt paralyzed by the unfairness of it all. The crowd continued to cheer, oblivious to the injustice that had just taken place. Mariah's classmates congratulated the other girl, completely ignoring Mariah's accomplishment. It was as if her victory had been erased, as if her efforts and talent meant nothing. The pain in her chest grew, and she struggled to hold back her tears. As the event concluded, Mariah finally made her way to her parents. They hugged her tightly, trying to comfort her, but the hurt was too deep. "It's not fair," Mariah whispered, her voice trembling. "I won. I know I did." Her father nodded, his expression hardening with resolve. "You did win, Mariah, and we're going to make sure this gets set right." The car ride home was quiet, the air heavy with unspoken words. Mariah stared out the window, her mind replaying the race over and over again. She couldn't understand how something so unfair could happen, how she could be denied the recognition she had rightfully earned. Her parents exchanged worried glances in the front seat, but they didn't speak, knowing their daughter needed time to process what had just occurred. When they arrived home, Mariah slowly climbed out of the car, her shoulders slumped in defeat. The house, usually a place of comfort, felt cold and uninviting. As they walked through the front door, her mother gently placed a hand on her back, trying to offer some solace. "Sweetheart, we're going to figure this out," she said softly, but Mariah couldn't muster a response. She headed straight to her room, closing the door behind her with a soft click. The sight of her track shoes and uniform laid out neatly on the chair only deepened the ache in her chest. Mariah sat on the edge of her bed, staring down at the floor, her mind swirling with a mix of confusion, anger, and sadness. How could they have ignored her victory? Why hadn't anyone stood up for her? As the evening wore on, Mariah's emotions began to shift from sadness to determination. She wasn't sure what could be done, but she knew she couldn't let this go. She had worked too hard and given too much to be treated like this. But for now, all she could do was try to sleep, even as the unfairness of the day continued to gnaw at her heart. The next morning, Mariah woke up with the heavy weight of the previous day still pressing down on her. She dragged herself out of bed and went downstairs, where her parents were sitting at the kitchen table, their expressions serious. Her father looked up as she entered, his face softening with concern. "Morning, sweetie," he said gently. "How are you feeling?" Mariah shrugged, grabbing a glass of water from the counter. "Still upset, I guess," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It just doesn't make any sense. Why didn't they call my name?" Her mother reached across the table, taking Mariah's hand in hers. "We don't know, honey, but your father and I have been talking, and we think we should go to the school today and talk to the principal about what happened. This isn't right, and we need to make sure they understand that." Mariah nodded slowly, appreciating their support, but still feeling the sting of yesterday's injustice. "Do you really think it'll make a difference? I mean, they gave her the medal in front of everyone. What if they just brush it off?" Her father leaned forward, his eyes filled with determination. "They won't brush it off, Mariah. We're going to make sure they hear us. You deserve that medal, and they need to acknowledge that." Feeling a small flicker of hope, Mariah agreed to go with them. Later that morning, they arrived at the school, and Mariah's heart pounded as they walked through the familiar halls. Her parents led the way to the principal's office, where they were greeted by the school secretary. "We'd like to speak with the principal about something that happened during the track and field competition yesterday," Mariah's father said firmly. The secretary nodded, sensing the seriousness in his tone. "Of course. Please have a seat, and I'll let her know you're here." After a few tense minutes, they were ushered into the principal's office. Principal Henderson, a stern-looking woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun, gestured for them to sit. "What can I do for you?" she asked, her tone polite but formal. Mariah's father wasted no time. "We're here because our daughter, Mariah, was not awarded the medal she rightfully won during yesterday's competition. We need to understand why this happened and how it will be corrected." Principal Henderson's brow furrowed as she listened. "I see," she said slowly. "I wasn't aware of any issues with the awards yesterday. Let me look into this and get back to you." Mariah's mother leaned forward, her voice steady but insistent. "We're not leaving until we have answers. This wasn't just an oversight. It was a public humiliation, and it needs to be addressed." The principal nodded, her expression softening slightly. "I understand. I'll speak with the coaches and the event coordinators right away. Please give me a little time to investigate this. I assure you, we will get to the bottom of it." As they left the office, Mariah felt a small sense of relief, knowing that her parents were standing up for her. But there was still a part of her that wondered if anything would really change. The rest of the day passed in a blur for Mariah. Despite her parents' determination and the principal's promise to investigate, doubt still gnawed at her. What if nothing came of it? What if she was just another overlooked student in a system that didn't care? That evening, Mariah was in her room trying to distract herself with homework when she heard the doorbell ring. She didn't think much of it until she heard her mother call her name from downstairs. "Mariah, can you come down here for a minute?" Curious and slightly apprehensive, Mariah set her books aside and headed downstairs. As she reached the bottom of the staircase, she saw her parents standing at the front door, talking to a man in a delivery uniform. He held a large rectangular package in his hands. "This just arrived for you," her mother said, her voice tinged with surprise. "For me?" Mariah asked, her brow furrowing in confusion as she took the package from the delivery man. She glanced at the label, but there was no sender listed. "Who could this be from?" "Only one way to find out," her father said with a small smile, watching as Mariah carefully peeled away the tape and opened the box. Inside, nestled among protective packaging, was a beautiful gold-framed plaque. Mariah's breath caught in her throat as she read the engraved words, "To Mariah Anderson, for your outstanding performance and exemplary sportsmanship in the 400-meter dash. Your talent and perseverance are an inspiration to us all." Underneath the plaque was a note, neatly folded. Mariah unfolded it with trembling hands, her eyes scanning the handwritten message. "Dear Mariah, I was at the competition yesterday and saw what happened. It was clear to everyone watching that you were the true winner of that race. Please accept this plaque as a symbol of your victory, even if the medal wasn't given to you. Keep pushing forward and never let anyone take away what you've earned. The world needs more young people like you who show grace and determination in the face of injustice. With admiration, a friend. Mariah's eyes welled with tears as she looked up at her parents, who were both staring at the plaque in awe. I can't believe this, she whispered, overcome with emotion. Who could have done this? Her mother wrapped her arms around her in a tight hug. Whoever it was, they saw your worth, Mariah. They saw what we all saw, that you're a champion. As Mariah clutched the plaque to her chest, she felt a warmth spread through her, replacing the doubt and pain she had been carrying. It wasn't a gold medal, but in some ways it felt even more meaningful. The next morning, Mariah awoke with a renewed sense of hope. The plaque, now proudly displayed on her dresser, served as a constant reminder that someone out there recognized her efforts and believed in her. It was a small victory, but it meant the world to her. As she prepared for school, Mariah couldn't help but wonder who had sent the plaque. Her mind raced with possibilities, but she couldn't pinpoint anyone specific. She decided to keep the note a secret, treasuring it as a personal reminder of her worth. When Mariah arrived at school, she noticed something unusual. Students and teachers alike were whispering, casting glances in her direction. She felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. Had word gotten out about the medal mix-up? Or was it something else? As she approached her locker, Mariah was surprised to find her track coach, Mr. Williams, waiting for her. He was holding a small box, his expression a mix of seriousness and regret. Mariah, can I talk to you for a moment? He asked, his tone gentle. Mariah nodded, her heart pounding. Sure, coach. What's going on? Mr. Williams sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. I owe you an apology. There was a mistake during the awards ceremony, and you should have been the one receiving the gold medal. The organizers have admitted their error, and we're going to make it right. He opened the box and revealed the gold medal, glinting in the fluorescent lights of the hallway. This is yours, Mariah. You earned it. Mariah stared at the medal, her emotions swirling. She felt a mix of vindication and relief, but there was something else too. An unexpected sense of gratitude for the plaque she had received the night before. Thank you, Coach, Maria said, her voice steady as she took the medal. But I have to tell you, something amazing happened yesterday. She proceeded to tell Mr. Williams about the mysterious plaque and the note that had been delivered to her house. Mr. Williams listened intently, his expression softening. That's incredible, Mariah. It sounds like someone out there sees the potential in you, just like I do. Hold on to that feeling. Let it drive you forward. Mariah smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride. For the first time since the race, she felt whole again. She had the medal, the plaque, and the knowledge that her hard work had not gone unnoticed. As the school day progressed, word spread quickly about Mariah finally receiving her gold medal. Her classmates, who had initially ignored her victory, now approached her with congratulations and apologies. Some admitted they had heard about the mistake and felt bad for not speaking up sooner. Mariah accepted their apologies graciously, but her thoughts kept returning to the mysterious plaque and the note that had been delivered to her house. At lunchtime, Mariah found herself sitting with her close friends who were eager to hear the full story. So, you're telling me someone just sent you this plaque out of the blue? Her friend Jasmine asked, her eyes wide with amazement. Yeah, Mariah nodded, still somewhat in disbelief herself. I have no idea who sent it. The note didn't have a name, just that they saw the race and wanted to make sure I knew I deserved to win. That's wild, another friend Marcus chimed in. But it's awesome that someone had your back like that. As they talked, Mariah noticed the principal, Mrs. Henderson, walking toward their table. Her expression was serious, but there was a hint of something else. Admiration, perhaps? The students fell silent as she approached. Mariah, can I speak with you for a moment? Mrs. Henderson asked, her tone more gentle than usual. Mariah nodded and followed the principal to a quiet corner of the cafeteria. Is everything okay, Principal Henderson? She asked, trying to gauge the reason for the conversation. Mrs. Henderson smiled softly. I wanted to personally apologize to you for what happened during the competition. There was an error in the scoring, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. But there's something else you should know. Mariah's heart skipped a beat. What is it? The person who sent you that plaque is someone who has been following your progress for a while, Mrs. Henderson revealed. They've seen how hard you've worked and how talented you are. I didn't want to say anything until now, but I've been in contact with a local athletic foundation, and they're interested in offering you a scholarship to further your training. Mariah's eyes widened in shock. A scholarship? To train? Yes, Mrs. Henderson confirmed. They were impressed by your performance, not just in the race, but by how you handled everything that followed. They believe you have a bright future ahead of you. Mariah could hardly believe what she was hearing. Not only had her hard work been recognized, but it had also opened doors she never imagined possible. Thank you, Principal Henderson, she managed to say, her voice filled with emotion. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Mariah, Mrs. Henderson replied warmly. Just keep doing what you're doing. You've earned this. That evening, Mariah sat with her parents at the dinner table, the events of the day replaying in her mind. She had told them about the medal, the mysterious plaque, and the conversation with Principal Henderson. As she recounted the offer from the Athletic Foundation, her parents exchanged glances, their faces lighting up with pride and excitement. I can't believe it, Mariah said, shaking her head in disbelief. A scholarship to train with professional coaches? This is more than I ever dreamed of. Her father smiled, his eyes shining with pride. You've earned it, Mariah. All those early mornings, all that hard work. It's paying off. This is just the beginning. Her mother reached across the table, taking Mariah's hand in hers. We're so proud of you, sweetheart. You've shown everyone what you're capable of, and now you're getting the recognition you deserve. Mariah felt a warmth spread through her chest as she looked at her parents, their support and love filling her with a sense of accomplishment. I couldn't have done it without you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. You've always believed in me, even when I doubted myself. Her father nodded, squeezing her hand. And we always will. This scholarship is just the start, Mariah. You've got a bright future ahead of you. As they continued to talk about the exciting possibilities that lay ahead, Mariah felt a new sense of purpose and determination. The sting of the previous day's injustice had been replaced by hope and anticipation. She was no longer just the girl who had been overlooked. She was a champion, recognized and valued for her talent and hard work. After dinner, Mariah went up to her room and looked at the plaque on her dresser. She traced the engraved words with her fingers, a smile spreading across her face. Whoever had sent this to her had seen something special in her, and now it was her turn to believe in herself. With renewed resolve, Mariah began to make plans for the future. She would accept the scholarship, train harder than ever before, and prove to herself and everyone else that she was worthy of every opportunity that came her way. The challenges she had faced had only made her stronger, and now she was ready to take on the world. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Mariah dreamed not of the past, but of the incredible future that awaited her. The following week, Mariah stood outside the training facility that had been mentioned by Principal Henderson. The Athletic Foundation had arranged for her to meet with one of their top coaches, someone who had trained Olympic athletes. The enormity of the opportunity weighed on her, but it was accompanied by an undercurrent of excitement she hadn't felt in a long time. Her parents had driven her to the facility, and as they parked the car, Mariah took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. You ready, champ? Her father asked, turning around to look at her with a proud smile. Mariah nodded, though her hands trembled slightly as she opened the car door. I think so, she replied, her voice steadying as she stepped out onto the pavement. I can't believe this is really happening. Her mother placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You've worked hard for this, Mariah. Just be yourself and give it your all, like you always do. We'll be right here when you're done. With a final smile at her parents, Mariah walked toward the entrance of the facility. The doors slid open with a quiet whoosh, revealing a spacious, state-of-the-art training center. Athletes of all ages were scattered around, running on tracks, lifting weights and practicing drills. The atmosphere buzzed with energy and focus. As Mariah took in the impressive surroundings, a tall, fit woman with a clipboard approached her. She had short, silver-streaked hair, sharp blue eyes, and an air of authority that immediately commanded respect. Mariah Anderson? She asked, offering a firm handshake. Yes, that's me, Mariah replied, shaking the woman's hand. I'm Coach Rivers, the woman introduced herself. I've been looking forward to meeting you. I heard about what happened at your school's competition, and I have to say I'm impressed with how you handled it. Mariah blushed slightly, surprised that even the coach had heard about the incident. Thank you, Coach Rivers. I'm just really excited to be here and to learn from you. Coach Rivers nodded approvingly. That's the right attitude. Today we'll start with some basic assessments to see where you're at. Don't worry about impressing anyone. Just do your best. Mariah nodded, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. She followed Coach Rivers to the track, where they began the assessment. Mariah's nerves quickly faded as she lost herself in the familiar rhythm of running, her legs moving with practiced ease, her mind focused on each stride. As the session progressed, Coach Rivers observed Mariah closely, occasionally offering pointers, but mostly letting her find her groove. When the assessment was over, the coach nodded with a satisfied expression. You've got a lot of potential, Mariah. With the right training, you could go far, maybe even to the national level. Mariah's heart soared at the words. Thank you, Coach. I'm ready to work hard and give it everything I've got. Coach Rivers smiled, clapping her on the shoulder. That's what I like to hear. Welcome to the team, Mariah. As she left the facility that day, Mariah felt a surge of pride and determination. She had taken the first step toward her dreams, and she knew there was no turning back now. The path ahead would be challenging, but she was ready to face it head-on, with the same perseverance that had carried her through the race, and the injustice that followed. Over the next few months, Mariah dedicated herself to her training with an intensity she hadn't known she possessed. Each morning began with a grueling routine of warm-ups, drills, and endurance runs, followed by strength training in the afternoons. The demands were tough, but Mariah embraced them, fueled by the memory of the injustice she had faced and the support she had received in its aftermath. Coach Rivers quickly became both a mentor and a guide, pushing Mariah beyond her limits while also nurturing her confidence. You've got the talent, Mariah, she would often say during their sessions. But talent alone isn't enough. It's your heart, your determination, and your willingness to push through the pain that will set you apart from the rest. Mariah took those words to heart, pushing herself harder each day. She became known at the facility not just for her speed, but for her work ethic and resilience. On the days when her muscles ached and exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, Mariah would think back to the plaque and the mysterious letter. Whoever had sent it believed in her, and that belief became a powerful motivator. Her dedication didn't go unnoticed. Other athletes at the facility began to respect her, seeing her not just as a young girl with potential, but as a serious competitor. They started to share their own tips and experiences, creating a supportive network that helped Mariah grow even more. One afternoon, after an especially intense session on the track, Coach Rivers pulled Mariah aside. I've been watching you closely, Mariah, she said, her tone thoughtful, and I think it's time we start preparing you for your first major competition. There's an invitational meet in a few months, and I want you to be ready. Mariah's heart skipped a beat. A major competition? Do you really think I'm ready for that? Coach Rivers smiled, a look of confidence in her eyes. I wouldn't be suggesting it if I didn't. You've proven that you're ready to take the next step. This is your chance to show everyone what you're capable of. Excitement and nerves coursed through Mariah as she absorbed the news. Competing on a larger stage was a dream come true, but it also meant more pressure, more expectations. Still, she knew she couldn't pass up the opportunity. I'll do it, she said with determination. I'll give it everything I've got. In the weeks that followed, Mariah's training ramped up even further. Every day was a test of her endurance and willpower, but she pushed through, driven by the knowledge that she was getting closer to her goal. The memory of the race where she had been overlooked no longer haunted her. It had become the fuel that powered her forward. As the day of the competition drew near, Mariah's parents noticed the change in their daughter. She was more focused, more confident, and more determined than ever before. We're so proud of you, Mariah, her mother said one evening as they sat together in the living room. No matter what happens at the competition, remember how far you've come. Maria smiled, feeling the weight of her parents' pride and support. I won't forget, Mom. This is just the beginning. With the competition now on the horizon, Mariah felt a mixture of anticipation and resolve. She had worked too hard to let fear hold her back now. Whatever happened at the meet, She knew she was ready to face it head-on, with the strength and determination that had carried her through every challenge so far. The day of the competition arrived with the kind of crisp, clear morning that runners dream of. Mariah woke up early, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. This was it, the moment she had been working toward for months. She knew that today's race would be unlike any she had run before, not just because of the higher stakes, but because she was no longer the same person who had crossed that finish line months ago. Her parents drove her to the stadium, where hundreds of athletes from across the region had gathered to compete. As they approached the entrance, Mariah looked out at the sea of competitors, each one focused and determined, just like her. She felt a momentary flutter of doubt. What if she wasn't ready? What if she didn't measure up to the other runners? But as soon as the thought crossed her mind, she pushed it away. She had trained for this, sacrificed for this, and she wasn't going to let fear get the better of her now. As they parked, Mariah's father turned to her, his expression serious but full of pride. Remember what Coach Rivers always says? It's not just about speed, it's about heart. You've got plenty of both, Mariah. Mariah smiled, drawing strength from her father's words. Thanks, Dad. I'll give it everything I've got. Inside the stadium, the atmosphere was electric. The stands were filled with spectators, the air buzzing with anticipation. Mariah made her way to the track, where Coach Rivers was waiting. The coach's calm, steady presence immediately put her at ease. How are you feeling? Coach Rivers asked, her sharp eyes assessing Mariah's demeanor. Nervous, Mariah admitted, but ready. Coach Rivers nodded, a slight smile playing on her lips. Good. That's exactly where you should be. Use those nerves to your advantage. Remember, this is just another race, one you've prepared for. Trust your training, trust yourself, and run like you know you can. As the time for her race drew closer, Mariah went through her warm-up routine, focusing on her breathing and clearing her mind of any doubts. The noise of the crowd faded to a dull roar in the background as she centered herself, visualizing the race in her mind. She knew the track, she knew the competition, and she knew what she had to do. Finally, the moment came. The runners were called to the starting line. Mariah took her position, her heart racing in her chest. She glanced down the line at the other competitors, each one a potential obstacle, but also a challenge she was ready to face. The starter raised his hand and the stadium fell silent. Mariah focused on the track ahead, her body tense with anticipation. And then, the gun fired. She exploded off the starting line, her legs moving with power and precision. The world around her blurred as she concentrated on maintaining her form, her breathing, and her pace. The sound of her feet hitting the track, the rhythm of her heartbeat, the feel of the wind against her face, it all blended into a single unified focus. Mariah was in her element. Mariah felt the adrenaline surging through her veins as she powered down the track. Her legs moved with the practiced precision of months of training, her arms pumping in perfect rhythm. She could hear the roar of the crowd, but it was distant, almost muffled as she zeroed in on the only thing that mattered, the finish line. As she rounded the first curve, Mariah found herself in a good position, right alongside the lead runner. She could feel the pressure, the intense drive to push ahead, but she held back, trusting in her strategy. Coach Rivers had drilled it into her time and time again. Don't expend all your energy too soon. Stay steady, stay focused. The runners stretched out along the track, each one determined to outpace the others. Mariah's heart pounded in her chest, her breathing even and controlled as she kept pace. She was aware of every movement, every breath, every beat of her heart. But there was no room for doubt, only determination. As they approached the final stretch, Mariah knew this was the moment. It was time to give everything she had. Drawing on every ounce of strength left in her, she surged forward, her legs burning with the effort. She passed one runner, then another, until she was neck and neck with the girl in the lead. The finish line was in sight, just a few meters away. Mariah's entire body screamed with exhaustion, but she pushed harder, her eyes locked on that line, her mind focused on one thought: win. With a final explosive burst of speed, Mariah crossed the finish line, her chest heaving as she staggered to a stop. The world seemed to spin around her as she gasped for breath, her legs trembling from the exertion. She had done it. She had given it everything. The crowd erupted in cheers and Mariah slowly raised her head, trying to process what had just happened. Did she win? Did she place? She searched the faces of the officials, waiting for the final word. Then she heard it, her name being called over the loudspeaker. And the winner of the 400-meter dash, with an outstanding performance, is Mariah Anderson. A wave of relief and joy washed over her, nearly bringing her to her knees. She had won. After everything she had been through, she had crossed that finish line first. Tears filled her eyes as she looked up into the stands, finding her parents, who were on their feet, cheering and clapping with pride. Coach Rivers was there too, nodding with approval, her expression one of satisfaction and pride. Mariah couldn't stop the smile that spread across her face. This victory was hers, and no one could take it away from her. She had proven to herself, to everyone, that she belonged here, that she was a champion. Mariah stood on the winner's podium, her heart still racing from the adrenaline of the race. The gold medal was heavy around her neck, a tangible symbol of everything she had worked for. She could hardly believe it. She had dreamed of this moment for so long, and now it was real. The cheers from the crowd were deafening, but all Mariah could focus on was the feeling of pride and accomplishment swelling in her chest. As the applause continued, Mariah caught sight of her parents in the crowd. They were beaming with pride, their eyes glistening with tears. Her father gave her a thumbs up, and her mother blew her a kiss. Mariah smiled back at them, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. They had supported her every step of the way, and now they were here to share in her triumph. Coach Rivers stood at the edge of the track, her arms crossed but her expression filled with approval. Mariah knew that without her coach's guidance and encouragement, she wouldn't have reached this moment. She gave a small nod of thanks to Coach Rivers, who returned it with a proud smile. As Mariah stood there, soaking in the moment, she couldn't help but think back to the race months ago. The race where she had been denied her rightful recognition. How far she had come since then. That moment of injustice had been painful, but it had also fueled her determination to prove herself, to show the world what she was capable of. And now here she was, standing on top, having proven not just to others, but to herself, that she was worthy of every accolade she received. After the ceremony, Mariah made her way back to her parents, who enveloped her in a tight, tearful embrace. "We're so proud of you," her mother whispered, holding her close. "You've worked so hard for this, and you deserve every bit of it." Her father pulled back, looking at her with a mixture of awe and pride. "You're amazing, Mariah. I knew you had it in you. This is just the beginning." Mariah's heart swelled with emotion as she hugged them both again. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said, her voice thick with gratitude. "Thank you for always believing in me." The three of them stood there for a moment, basking in the glow of the victory. It wasn't just about the medal, it was about everything that had led to this moment. The hard work, the setbacks, the support, and the unwavering belief that she could achieve greatness. As they left the stadium, Mariah knew that this was a moment she would carry with her for the rest of her life. It was more than just a race, more than just a medal. It was proof that she had the strength, the perseverance, and the heart to overcome any obstacle and achieve her dreams. The next few days were a whirlwind of excitement and celebration. Mariah's victory at the meet had made headlines in the local news, and word quickly spread about the young athlete who had overcome adversity to claim her place at the top. At school, Mariah was greeted with congratulations from students and teachers alike. Even those who had once overlooked her were now acknowledging her achievement. But the most surprising moment came one afternoon when Mariah was called to the principal's office. As she walked down the hallway, her mind raced with possibilities. Had something gone wrong? Was there another mistake? She pushed the doubts aside and focused on staying calm. When she arrived, Principal Henderson greeted her with a warm smile. "Come in, Mariah," she said, gesturing for her to take a seat. "I have some wonderful news to share with you." Mariah's heart began to pound in her chest as she sat down. "What is it, Principal Henderson?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The principal leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I received a call this morning from the National Athletic Foundation. They've been following your progress, and they're extremely impressed with your recent victory. They want to offer you a full scholarship to attend their elite training program this summer." Mariah's eyes widened in shock. A full scholarship to train with the National Athletic Foundation? Principal Henderson nodded, her smile widening. Yes, Mariah, this is an incredible opportunity. The program is highly competitive, and only the best young athletes in the country are selected. They believe you have the potential to go far, and they want to help you achieve your dreams. Mariah could hardly believe what she was hearing. A full scholarship to one of the most prestigious training programs in the country. It was more than she had ever dared to hope for. I, I don't know what to say, she stammered, her mind racing with excitement and disbelief. You've earned this, Mariah, Principal Henderson said gently. Your hard work, your determination, and your talent have brought you to this moment. I have no doubt that you'll make the most of this opportunity. As Mariah left the principal's office, she felt as though she were walking on air. The scholarship wasn't just a recognition of her talent. It was a validation of everything she had worked for, a sign that her dreams were within reach. She couldn't wait to tell her parents, who she knew would be overjoyed. That evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Mariah shared the news. Her parents' faces lit up with pride and excitement, their earlier support and encouragement now fully realized in this incredible opportunity. This is amazing, Mariah, her father exclaimed, his voice filled with emotion. You've worked so hard for this, and now it's paying off in ways we never imagined. Her mother nodded, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. You deserve this, sweetheart. We're so proud of you. Mariah smiled, her heart full to bursting. I'm going to give it everything I've got, she said with determination. This is my chance to really make something of myself, and I'm not going to let it slip away. As she lay in bed that night, Mariah thought about how far she had come since that fateful race where she had been denied her medal. What had once been a painful experience had now become the catalyst for something extraordinary. She had turned her disappointment into determination, her hurt into hope, and now she was on the brink of something truly life-changing. The summer that followed was one of the most intense and rewarding periods of Mariah's life. The National Athletic Foundation's training program was everything she had imagined, and more. From the moment she arrived at the elite facility, nestled in the foothills of a sprawling mountain range, Mariah knew she was in for the challenge of a lifetime. The program was rigorous, designed to push each athlete to their limits and beyond. Days began at dawn with early morning runs through the scenic trails surrounding the facility. The crisp mountain air filled Mariah's lungs as she sprinted up steep inclines, her legs burning with effort, but her mind focused on one goal: improvement. After the morning runs, the athletes were put through a series of drills that tested their speed, agility, and endurance. Coaches, many of whom were former Olympians, observed with keen eyes, offering tips and corrections to help each athlete reach their full potential. Mariah thrived under their guidance, soaking up every piece of advice and pushing herself harder than ever before. But it wasn't just the physical training that made the program special. Mariah also spent time in workshops and seminars where she learned about the mental aspects of competition. She studied techniques for maintaining focus under pressure, strategies for outsmarting opponents, and the importance of mental toughness. These sessions were led by sports psychologists and former champions who shared their personal experiences and insights. Mariah quickly realized that success in athletics wasn't just about physical ability, it was about mindset, preparation, and resilience. She began to see herself not just as a runner, but as a complete athlete, with the skills and determination to compete at the highest level. The friendships Mariah formed during the program were another unexpected but welcome benefit. She met athletes from all over the country, each with their own unique story and set of challenges. They bonded over shared struggles and celebrated each other's successes, forming a tight-knit community of support. The camaraderie helped Mariah stay motivated, even on the toughest days when exhaustion and doubt threatened to creep in. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of training, Mariah found herself sitting on the edge of a cliff overlooking the valley below. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the landscape. As she sat there catching her breath and taking in the view, Mariah felt a deep sense of peace and accomplishment. She thought about everything that had led her to this moment, the injustice of that first race, the mysterious plaque that had arrived at her door, the scholarship that had opened the door to this incredible opportunity. Each step had been a part of her journey, pushing her to become stronger, more determined, and more confident in her abilities. Mariah knew she was no longer the girl who had been overlooked and underestimated. She had transformed into an athlete with a clear vision of her future, and nothing could stand in her way. As the summer program drew to a close, Mariah felt a mix of sadness and excitement. She had learned so much and grown in ways she hadn't thought possible, but she was also eager to return home and put everything she had gained into practice. She knew that the real test was still to come, when she would step back onto the track and face new challenges with the world watching. But now Mariah was ready. She had the skills, the knowledge, and the inner strength to take on whatever came next. The summer had been transformative, and she was determined to carry that transformation into the next chapter of her life. When Mariah returned home after the summer training program, she was greeted with open arms by her parents, who couldn't hide their pride and joy. She had left as a determined young athlete, but returned as a focused, confident competitor, ready to take on the world. The first few days back were filled with stories and laughter as Mariah recounted her experiences at the training facility. Her parents listened intently as she spoke about the rigorous workouts, the lessons on mental toughness, and the friendships she had formed with other athletes. But what they noticed most was the change in their daughter, her newfound confidence, and the fire in her eyes. "You've grown so much, Mariah," her mother said one evening as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset. "I can see it in the way you talk, the way you carry yourself. You're ready for whatever comes next." Mariah smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. "I feel different, Mom. Stronger, more focused. I know what I want now, and I'm not afraid to go after it." Her father nodded in agreement. "That's the spirit. You've been given a gift, Mariah. This opportunity to train with the best. Now it's up to you to make the most of it." Mariah knew her father was right. The summer had been a turning point, but it was just the beginning. She had to continue working hard, stay focused, and keep pushing herself to reach her full potential. As she settled back into her routine at home, Mariah wasted no time in putting her training to use. She rejoined her school's track team, eager to see how much she had improved. Her teammates and coaches immediately noticed the difference. Mariah was faster, stronger, and more determined than ever before. During the first practice, Coach Williams pulled her aside, his eyes wide with amazement. "Mariah, you're like a completely different runner. What happened this summer?" Mariah grinned, her heart swelling with pride. "I learned a lot, Coach, but more than anything, I realized that I can do this. I can be the best if I work hard enough." Coach Williams nodded, clearly impressed. "Keep that mindset, Mariah. You've got something special, and I have no doubt you're going to go far." The rest of the season flew by in a blur of races and victories. Mariah dominated the competition, setting new personal records and winning nearly every event she entered. Her confidence grew with each race, and soon she became the athlete to watch, her name spreading throughout the region as one of the rising stars in track and field. But even as the accolades poured in, Mariah remained humble and focused. She knew that the road ahead was long and that she still had much to prove. The support of her parents, coaches, and teammates fueled her determination, and she never lost sight of her ultimate goal: to compete at the highest level and make a name for herself in the world of athletics. One evening, as she prepared for bed, Mariah took a moment to reflect on her journey. She thought about the race where she had been denied her medal, the plaque that had mysteriously arrived at her door, and the incredible opportunities that had followed. Each step had shaped her into the person she was today: strong, resilient, and unafraid to chase her dreams. As she drifted off to sleep, Mariah knew that her journey was far from over. But with every challenge she had faced, she had grown stronger, and she was ready for whatever the future held. As the school year progressed, Mariah's reputation as a top athlete continued to grow. She was not only winning races, but also inspiring those around her with her work ethic, determination, and humility. Her success had caught the attention of more than just her local community. It wasn't long before she received an invitation that would take her journey to the next level. One afternoon, Mariah was in the middle of practice when she noticed Coach Williams waving her over from the sidelines. She jogged over, slightly out of breath, curious about what could be so important. Mariah, Coach Williams began, a wide grin on his face, I just got off the phone with the organizers of the National Youth Championships. They've been following your progress, and they want to extend a special invitation for you to compete this year. Mariah's eyes widened in disbelief. The National Youth Championships were the most prestigious event for young athletes in the country, a stepping stone to even bigger competitions, including the possibility of qualifying for junior national teams. They want me to compete? She asked, her voice tinged with excitement and a hint of nervousness. Yes, they do, Coach Williams confirmed, his pride evident. This is a huge opportunity, Mariah. Competing at the Nationals will put you on the radar of college scouts, national coaches, and even professional teams. This is your chance to show everyone what you're made of. Mariah felt a rush of emotions, excitement, pride, and a touch of anxiety. The stakes were higher than ever, but she knew she was ready. I'll do it, she said, her voice steady with determination. I'll train harder than I ever have before. Coach Williams nodded, his expression serious but supportive. I know you will. We'll adjust your training to make sure you're in peak condition by the time the competition rolls around. But remember, Mariah, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Keep your focus, stay grounded, and trust in the work you've already put in. Over the next few weeks, Mariah's training intensified. Every day she pushed herself harder, knowing that the National Youth Championships were her chance to prove herself on a much larger stage. The anticipation built as the date of the competition drew closer, and with it, the pressure to perform at her best. But Mariah wasn't alone in this journey. Her parents were by her side, offering encouragement and reminding her to take care of herself amid the grueling training schedule. Coach Rivers, who had been instrumental in her development over the summer, stayed in close contact, offering advice and helping to refine her techniques. The night before the competition, Mariah sat quietly in her room, reflecting on how far she had come. The journey had been long and challenging, filled with moments of doubt and frustration, but also incredible growth and achievement. Now she was on the brink of something truly extraordinary. As she lay down to sleep, Mariah took a deep breath, letting go of the anxiety and focusing on the excitement of the race ahead. She knew that whatever happened tomorrow, she had already won in so many ways. She had proven to herself that she was capable of greatness, and now it was time to show the world. The day of the National Youth Championships dawned bright and clear, the kind of morning that seemed to promise great things. Mariah woke up early, her nerves already buzzing with anticipation. This was the biggest race of her life, the moment she had worked so hard for, and she was determined to make it count. Her parents drove her to the stadium, which was a massive, state-of-the-art facility bustling with activity. Athletes from all over the country were warming up, their expressions focused and intense. Mariah had never been in a competition of this magnitude, and as she stepped out of the car, the sheer scale of it all hit her. Are you ready, Mariah? Her mother asked, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Maria nodded, though her heart was pounding. I think so, she said, trying to steady her breath. It's just a lot. Her father smiled, his voice full of quiet confidence. You've prepared for this. You've earned your place here. Just remember everything you've learned and run your race. Mariah smiled back, feeling a wave of calm wash over her. Thanks, Dad. I'll do my best. As they walked into the stadium, Mariah saw familiar faces among the competitors. Some were athletes she had met during her summer training. Others were new to her, but all of them shared the same fierce determination. The energy in the air was electric, a mix of excitement, nerves, and competitive spirit. Mariah went through her warm-up routine, trying to keep her focus on the task ahead. Coach Williams and Coach Rivers had both drilled into her the importance of staying calm and centered, even in the face of overwhelming pressure. She repeated their advice in her mind like a mantra. Focus on your race, not on the competition. Trust your training. Stay in the moment. When the time came for her event, Mariah took her place at the starting line. The stadium was packed with spectators, the noise a constant hum in the background. She could feel the weight of their expectations, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the track ahead. The starter raised his hand and the stadium fell silent. Mariah took a deep breath, her body tensing with anticipation. The gun fired, and she sprang forward, her legs moving with the powerful rhythm she had honed over months of training. As she raced down the track, Mariah's mind was clear. She wasn't thinking about the crowd, the other runners, or even the stakes. She was fully in the moment, each stride carrying her closer to her goal. She could feel the strength in her muscles, the steady beat of her heart, the rush of air against her face. This was where she belonged, where all the hard work paid off. The competition was fierce, but Mariah held her ground, keeping pace with the leaders. As they rounded the final curve, she knew it was time to push. Digging deep, she found that extra gear, the one that had carried her to victory so many times before. She surged forward, her eyes locked on the finish line. The roar of the crowd grew louder as Mariah closed the gap, and for a moment, it seemed as if everything slowed down. She could see the finish line just ahead, the other runners on either side of her, but all that mattered was crossing that line. With one final powerful stride, Mariah lunged forward, crossing the finish line in a blur of speed and determination. She stumbled slightly as she slowed to a stop, gasping for breath, her body trembling with exhaustion. The stadium erupted in cheers, and Mariah turned to see the scoreboard light up with the final results. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw her name at the top. She had won. She had done it. Tears filled her eyes as the magnitude of the moment hit her. She had just won the National Youth Championships. All the hard work, the sacrifices, the pain, and the perseverance had led to this moment, and it was everything she had dreamed of. Mariah stood on the track, her chest heaving as she tried to catch her breath, her mind reeling with the realization of what she had just accomplished. The crowd's cheers echoed in her ears, but it all felt distant, like she was in a dream. She had won the National Youth Championships. It was a moment she had imagined countless times, but now that it was real, it was almost too much to take in. As she walked toward the podium, her legs felt weak, not from the race, but from the overwhelming rush of emotions. She could see her parents in the stands, standing and cheering, their faces lit with pride and joy. Coach Williams and Coach Rivers were there too, both smiling with the kind of satisfaction that comes from seeing a hard-fought journey reach its triumphant conclusion. Mariah stepped onto the podium, her hands trembling slightly as they placed the gold medal around her neck. The weight of the medal felt both real and symbolic, proof of the strength and perseverance that had brought her to this point. As she looked out over the crowd, she felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for this moment, but for every step along the way that had led her here. The announcer's voice rang out across the stadium, declaring her the winner of the 400-meter dash at the National Youth Championships. The crowd erupted in applause once more, and Mariah found herself smiling through tears. This victory was more than just a win. It was the culmination of all the challenges she had faced, the injustices she had overcome, and the unwavering support from those who believed in her. As she stood there, basking in the glow of the moment, Mariah couldn't help but think back to that first race, the one where she had been denied her rightful recognition. The memory no longer brought pain or anger, but a sense of fulfillment. That experience had been a turning point, the catalyst for everything that followed. It had made her stronger, more determined, and ultimately it had brought her to this stage. When the ceremony was over, Mariah stepped down from the podium, the gold medal still warm against her chest. Her parents were the first to reach her, pulling her into a tight embrace. "You did it, sweetheart," her mother whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You did it." "We're so proud of you, Mariah," her father added, his voice thick with emotion. "You've worked so hard for this, and now look at you." Mariah felt the warmth of her parents' embrace, their pride and love washing over her like a soothing wave. She held them tightly, feeling the weight of the gold medal against her chest, and the even greater weight of their support lifting from her shoulders. The journey had been long and challenging, but standing there, surrounded by those who had believed in her, Mariah knew it had all been worth it. As she pulled back from the embrace, Mariah saw Coach Williams and Coach Rivers approaching. Both had wide smiles on their faces, their eyes shining with pride. "You've come a long way, Mariah," Coach Williams said, clapping her on the shoulder. "This is just the beginning for you. You've proven you have what it takes to compete at the highest level." Coach Rivers nodded in agreement. "You've shown grit, determination, and a level of maturity beyond your years." Remember this feeling, Mariah. Let it drive you forward, because I have no doubt you're destined for even greater things. Mariah felt a swell of emotion as she listened to their words. These two coaches had seen something in her from the start, and their guidance had been instrumental in her success. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you both. I'm ready to keep pushing, to see how far I can go." As they stood together, a figure approached from the sidelines, catching Mariah's eye. It was a tall, well-dressed man in his late 30s, with a confident but approachable demeanor. He held a business card in his hand, his eyes locking onto Mariah with an expression of admiration. "Mariah Anderson?" he asked, extending his hand as he reached her. "I'm Michael Harris, a scout for the National Collegiate Athletic Association. I've been following your progress, and I have to say, your performance today was nothing short of extraordinary." Mariah shook his hand, her heart skipping a beat. "Thank you, Mr. Harris," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady, despite the excitement bubbling up inside her. "I'd like to discuss your future," he continued, handing her his card. "We're very interested in recruiting you for our program. With your talent and dedication, you could have a bright future in collegiate athletics and beyond. If you're interested, we can set up a meeting to talk about the possibilities." Mariah looked down at the card, her mind racing. This was it. The opportunity to take her athletic career to the next level, to compete at a national level, and potentially on a global stage. It was everything she had dreamed of and more. "I'd love that," Mariah said, her voice filled with determination. "I'm ready to take the next step." As the day drew to a close, Mariah found herself reflecting on the incredible journey she had been on. From the girl who had been overlooked and underestimated to the champion standing at the cusp of greatness, she had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. But she knew there was still so much more to accomplish, so much more to prove. With the support of her family, coaches, and newfound mentors, Mariah felt a sense of confidence and purpose that she had never known before. The road ahead would be challenging, but she was ready for it. She had faced adversity, overcome obstacles, and now she was ready to chase her dreams with everything she had. As the sun set on the stadium and the crowd began to disperse, Mariah took one last look at the track where she had claimed her victory. This was her moment, her time to shine, and she knew deep in her heart that it was only the beginning of a future full of promise.